I have rewatched and reread Pong Hazard, and the amount of connections between Pong Hazard and Egghead Island is honestly nothing short of mind-boggling. There are numerous callbacks and direct references to Pong Hazard in the latest Egghead Island arc, from similar background information like both islands serving as Vegapung's base at some point or other, to Easter eggs like Kinemon and Vegapunk both being stuck and Luffy directly referencing it. There are many direct as well as subtle parallels between Pong Hazard and Egghead Island. In fact, there are at least 20 as the thumbnail says. Yes, I have counted every single instance in both arcs that tie into each other. And while some of these are honestly loose connections, many of them are not only solid but actually crazy. Before I start, I'd just like to take a moment to shout out my latest video on Yeti Cool Brothers, which has racked up quite the amount of views. Thank you so much for giving it so much love. Unfortunately though, almost none of you subscribed after watching the video. Please hit the like button, comment and subscribe if you like the content. It's free, you know? Now back to the video. First of all, both Pong Hazard and Egghead Island are or were government islands. As we know, Egghead Island is the current base of operations of Vegapunk, and all 6 of his clone bodies are satellites. As for Pong Hazard, it was a government island up until 4 years ago when a so-called accidental explosion happened. Caesar was actually behind the incident, as we would later find out. A year later, which is 3 years ago, Caesar came to Pong Hazard and made it his base of operations secretly. And then 2 years ago, the famous Aokiji and Akainu fight turned half of Pong Hazard into the burning lands and the other half into the icy lands. Therefore, Pong Hazard today is the remnant of the explosion 4 years ago, you can say, and also the remnant of the Admiral fight 2 years ago. As for Egghead Island, it is specifically said to be, quote, an island of the past, a remnant of the ancient kingdom 900 years ago. Though the technology of the island is a remnant of 900 years ago, the island itself was not like this in the past. It was only Vegapunk who used the technology of the ancient kingdom to make it so technologically advanced. Bonnie specifically mentions this, saying that it was, quote, a run-of-the-mill lab when she was a kid. The next parallel is in the change in the weather and climate of the islands. Pong Hazard used to be a lush green island prior to the explosion 4 years ago. Afterward, it was desolate and filled with poison gas. Also, 2 years ago, Aokiji and Akainu changed the landscape of the entire island with their awakened Logia powers. As for Egghead Island, we are told that the island aircon keeps the environment of the island tropical, whereas it is originally a winter island. The massive importance of Aokiji is another connection between the two arcs. He changed the entire landscape of Pong Hazard, as I just mentioned, and he also arrives at the end of the arc of Pong Hazard to save Smoker versus Doflamingo. Although Aokiji has not done anything on Egghead Island in the current timeline, he is pivotal to the flashback that we get regarding Ohara. Alas, Jaguar D Sol is alive. Perhaps Aokiji intentionally saved Sol by encasing him in an ice time capsule. Now let's go to my favorite parallel, which is the one with Kinemon and Vegapunk being stuck to a large creature / object. In Pong Hazard, the lower half of Kinemon's body is stuck to a dragon and Luffy pulls him out. Again, in Egghead Island, Luffy pulls out Vegapunk's original body from the legendary Iron Giant. Yes, it's Luffy both times. Speaking of the legendary Iron Giant, that's another connection with the gigantification experiments that Caesar was doing. In particular, there was a huge skeleton that Luffy, Zoro, Robin and Usopp found in the burning lands of Pong Hazard. It was much larger than a regular giant. Perhaps it was an ancient giant? But it didn't have any horns. Do you think all ancient giants have horns though? Or is that a feature of the Oni race? Please leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Going back to the gigantification experiments, those were mostly the only type of experiments that Caesar was doing on Pung Hazard. On the other hand, Vegapunk was doing all sorts of experiments, including the Seraphim production on Egghead Island. This also leads us to another connection, which is the jealousy Caesar has toward Vegapunk. Caesar wanted to show off his scientific genius by producing natural human giants from the bottom up with small children. There was an entire subplot of Caesar wanting to be called the world's greatest scientist, which is why he set up cameras and broadcasted his weapon of mass destruction, Smiley and Shinokuni. In the Egghead Island arc as well, we got several direct references to Pung Hazard, such as Shaka saying that he wanted to take the books in Ohara to Pung Hazard but wanted to keep it a secret and so didn't go there. The original Vegapunk also mentioned the so-called defective devil fruit that Momo ate on Pung Hazard. Another tie-in I really love is the importance of Frankie in each arc. On Pung Hazard, there is a metal door Sanji cannot break with his kicks. Frankie though is able to destroy it with his laser beam. Caesar is shocked at this and says that he only knows one person who can integrate laser technology. He also tells the Yeti Cool Brothers to bring Frankie alive so that he could dissect him. On Egghead Island, Frankie's laser beam is again the point of focus by Edison and Pythagoras. Edison says, "He just used a beam, who in tarnation is this guy?" And Pythagoras also wants to take input from Frankie. Going back to the small giant children, Mocha and the others are heavily featured on Pung Hazard. And in the Egghead Island arc, Mocha and the others are shown with Toshigi on a nearby government island. Even CP0 is connected to Pung Hazard. How? As of chapter 1067, they have arrived on Egghead Island, and they are quote-unquote assassins set by the Gorosei to kill Vegapunk, and Bonnie is also included in the hit list. On Pung Hazard, there were assassins there as well. Caesar sent the Yeti Cool Brothers to dispose of the Straw Hats and Brownbeard, and the Yeti Cool Brothers are also referred to as assassins. One curious reference made about Kuma is that he comes from a special race or a special group of people. On Pung Hazard, there is also a scene that focuses on the sheep horns of Caesar's minions. Now, the One Piece wiki refers to them as satyrs, who were quote-unquote originally human but were given goat-like features by Law. However, Law didn't change Caesar's appearance. His horns at least are probably natural. I won't get into more specifics in this video, but there are other creatures as well with sheep horns such as Enel's divine soldiers. Speaking of Law, do you guys remember that Law switched many of the Straw Hats' hearts with each other? Sanji was in Nami's body, Frankie was in Chopper's, and so on. So Nami, Sanji, Smoker and Tashigi stayed for some hours in the body of the opposite gender. Now in the Egghead Island arc, we got the exact opposite. Whereas Law perpetrated the gender bending on Pung Hazard, here he is the one whose gender is changed by Doc Q. Interesting, eh? Moving on, dragons are present in both arcs. There are dragons made by Vegapunk on Pung Hazard to serve as bodyguards. One was a big red dragon that Zoro decapitated, and another was a smaller but faster green dragon. On Egghead Island, there is a dragon projection, a hologram. Both the red dragon and the hologram also have interactions with Luffy. Another parallel interaction is with Sanji and a trader/clone. The trader I am referring to is Vergo and the clone is Seraphim Jinbei. On Pung Hazard, Sanji kicks Vergo and on Egghead Island he kicks Seraphim Jinbei. On both occasions, Sanji is one of the only Straw Hats to deal damage to them. He is the only Straw Hat to deal damage to Vergo, and he and Frankie are the only ones to damage Seraphim Jinbei. Now, how is this a connection? How are Vergo and Seraphim Jinbei connected? Well, both take advantage of their appearance and bond with the people they hurt. There was a subplot on Punk Hazard about the G5 soldiers not believing that Virgo was a traitor. Tashigi ended up lying for the sake of the G5 soldiers and said that this Virgo was an imposter. On Egghead Island, the Straw Hats also don't want to hurt Seraphim Jinbei. They have various interpretations of who it could be. One option is that it's Jinbei's brother. Another is that it's an imposter. The correct is of course by Frankie that it's a pacifista. Still, the connection is there of a perceived imposter in both arcs. For the rest of the connections, let's go to the beginning of each arc. Do you know that the first chapter of each arc also specifies the name of that arc? Chapter 655 is titled Punk Hazard and chapter 1061 is titled Egghead, the Island of the Future. Yes, these were the chapters that marked the beginning of each arc, the moment when the Straw Hats land on each island. The road to reaching each island also contains several cool Easter eggs. First, there is the gigantic white whirlpool or the white storm that Luffy says looks like a wormhole. By the way, you can even make another connection here by pointing out that the space-time warping thing is also mentioned by Vegapunk on Egghead Island. Anyway, the gigantic white whirlpool correlates with the eddy that the Straw Hats encounter on the road to Egghead. And guess how the whirlpool and the eddy are handled? It's Zoro. Zoro cuts the eddy in half. And while Zoro does not cut the giant whirlpool, he still uses a technique to cut the Sea Kings. And guess what? It's the Itoryu or the one sword style technique in both cases. And again, guess what? The Sea King that Zoro cuts is huge, being a Sea King and all. And there is a comedic subplot happening where one Sea King is eaten by another larger Sea King and that gets intimidated by the giant whirlpool, which is also compared to a giant sea snake. And then helping the Straw Hats are large island whales like Laboon, which are of course even larger than the aforementioned Sea Kings. So there's a subplot about sizes, and guess what? The same thing happens with the Straw Hats on Egghead Island. The Sunny is bigger than a regular giant and it's dwarfed by a massive shark. And the size discrepancy is also shown with the Vegaforce 01 when it holds up the Sunny. Finally, I would like to end with a connection with the 1000th Sunny. On the road to both Punk Hazard and Egghead, the paneling zooms in on the Sunny. When the Straw Hats get caught in the giant whirlpool, a hilarious panel shows the Sunny phased and with its mouth open. On the road to Egghead, the panel is more subtle, but an entire panel is dedicated to showing only Sunny and Sunny alone. While this can be just a gag, I think it is hinting at the Sunny spirit, the Klabauterman. Indeed, if the Mary had one, there's no reason why the Sunny shouldn't as well. Though I do tend to like Mary much more. So anyway, that was the video. I wanted to make a video about the parallels between Punk Hazard and Egghead Island, and to be honest, I had no idea there were 20. I would have been even surprised if there were 10. And actually now after doing the video, I would actually be surprised if there aren't more by the end of the Egghead Island arc. It's not done yet, so that also leaves room for speculation about what more parallels Oda may bring in. I will leave you guys with a few. Will there be a weapon of mass destruction like Smiley? I don't think Vegapunk is 100% ethical as long as scientific development happens, so there might be a chance of that happening. Also, the warp mechanism Vegapunk talks about may be shown in this arc, and that will absolutely parallel Law's Devil Fruit teleportation ability that we saw extensively on Punk Hazard. Finally, will there be a death in this arc, paralleling Monet and Virgo's death at the end of Punk Hazard? CP0 is out to kill Vegapunk and Bonnie, and some of the satellites may die, leaving Vegapunk with fewer parts of his brain and personality. Alas, Shaka himself prophesied his own death. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to show your support These videos take a lot of time and effort to make. If I get monetized, I can give more time on these, Tata.